Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Sir Hoonsalot. A lot of people have asked me why I am taking the whole front suspension apart in my wagon and redoing it. Well, I have a whiteboard and a dry erase marker, and I'm going to show you exactly why. So, Waggin has a McPherson strut front suspension. So we have the tire here. There's our outboard pickup point, which is the ball joint, the lower ball joint rather. Here's our inboard pickup point. That's the other end of the lower control arm. Up here we have the top of the strut where it's mounted to the body. So that comes down and attaches to the spindle right there. This is not a moving joint, so all of our motion is in this triangle here. For most purposes, this suspension is totally fine. In my car, however, this has been lowered. So we'll take this out. And what ended up happening when I lowered it is it changed the angle of this lower control arm. And when you do that, you lose negative camber. You need negative camber because as you corner, your tire will actually, the sidewall will roll over this way. And to make up for that, you lean the whole assembly this way, and that's your static camber. With a strut setup, there's really not much you can do to tune for progressive camber, which is increasing camber as your tire moves up and down. And in fact, in this current setup, and you can see in some of the pictures of my car on the track, when I'm cornering hard and this moves up, this control arm rotates on an arc similar to this. And what happens as it goes up this arc is the distance from here to the line drawn between these 2 points actually gets shorter, which means my tire will start to tip outwards, giving me positive camber, which is the exact opposite of what I want. I'll show you on the actual car how that works. That's also a good description of why you shouldn't lower a car with struts unless you really know what you're doing. So ways that can be fixed. Say you have a strut car, just like I had drawn. And it's lowered, so you have this control arm at this kind of an angle. Ways to fix this. You could move this inboard point upwards. You could get some kind of a lower ball joint, like a longer lower ball joint, to move this point downwards. Or you could move this point inwards at the top of the strut. Usually here, you're extremely limited on how much you can move it. This involves, you can do this with a lowering spindle, or maybe a longer ball joint, or switching to a tubular lower control arm, etc. This requires pretty extensive modification too, especially if you don't know what you're doing. And this can also mess with your bump steer settings, because you got to remember your rack plays with this angle too. So what I'm doing is I'm just getting rid of this whole strut assembly, I went to the junkyard and I got the spindle from a Crown Victoria, which is similar here, except it has an upper control arm. So now we have a lower control arm and an upper control arm. And what this is going to do for me is, as this tire moves up, this arm pivots on a smaller arc than this arm. So this distance is going to get shorter faster than this distance, giving me a progressive camber arc at my tire. And that's great for a number of reasons. I can have little to no negative camber at rest, which gives me the maximum contact patch possible with the road. And as I'm cornering, it'll lean the tire in to compensate for the tire rolling over. Beyond that, on the other side of the car, where the suspension is being unloaded, it even helps me there, because as this arm goes down, it straightens out and becomes longer faster than this one. So I will get positive camber on the unloaded side. So both tires will be leaning into the corner, giving me just the best contact patch possible. So, kind of long-winded, but a good explanation of why I am changing the front suspension on my car. Take care, dudes.